Hello comic book fans, here's Earl Grey and this is my well-loved German trade of the Return of the Dark Knight, drawn by Frank Miller and written by him, of course, inked by Klaus Jensen, colors by Lynn Varley. And this thing here is the momentarily quickest way to burn your money, but I couldn't help myself. The gallery edition of the same storyline, and it's a huge, very impressive book just by the size of it. And if you compare it to the Kelly Jones gallery edition, this is a huge book in itself too, but the new book is even a bit bigger. So I think the original art, which is contained herein, was just a bit bigger, and maybe Frank Miller used to draw on bigger paper as Kelly Jones. So it's always the problem how to present these books because they are not so light that you can juggle them in one hand before you. And so I will go for the details maybe at the end of the video and give you at first an overview of the whole double-page spreads, so that you have a bit of an impression how this book looks, and it's quite damn a beauty. As you know, The Dark Knight Returns consists out of 4 parts: The Dark Knight Returns, Dark Knight Triumphant, Hunt, and The Dark Knight Falls. This is a detail with Batman falling through the air under a helicopter. We see the context of it a bit later on. And as in the Kelly Jones gallery edition, they have lots of these translucent papers, overlays, to show the original drawings in comparison to the finished page or vice versa. And the bigger, the full-size panels are, of course, in this format very impressive, as you we'll see in a moment. But the ground rhythm, the basic rhythm of the story and Frank Miller's storytelling here is this 4x4 60-panel grid. And that's the basic rhythm that is modified a bit with bigger panels within, and but that's very typical for The Dark Knight Returns. Just with this depiction of the reactions of the media to the happenings in the story, and which was quite revolutionary, I think, in the time, and still is amazing, even though the media is a bit too much of a caricature, I think, and that's one of the problems I have with The Dark Knight Returns. Actually, The Dark Knight Returns isn't my favorite Batman story, because of this aspect that the underlying theme that goes from the first to the last page is that a man has to do what the man has to do, and it's all right to take the law into your own hand, even if you're a 55-year-old man. You can put a kid into danger, and the media that tells you otherwise is a bit of a prick sometimes. I mean, it's not so clear, but I think it's quite clear at least where Frank Miller's sympathies lie. And if you know how Frank Miller has developed afterwards to this very conservative moron. It's a bit problematic, I think. But that doesn't take my enjoyment and fun out of seeing the story, which is fantastic, told and very innovative. And just in this case, we have lots of Batman origins. It's retold again and again. But what Frank Miller does here, with very few words or no words at all, is at least one of the better ones. And when a bat comes through the window just like that, and the play with shadows and stuff is quite amazing. I love it how you can see the physicality of the artwork, how Frank Miller drew it and Klaus Jensen inked it, and they put this the text bubbles and sound words on it, and here greetings to Canada. Yeah, just amazing. And here we have the Joker, and all over there are these corrections with white out, and some details are changed afterwards. For an example, this amazing view of Gotham with Batman on it, with this very interesting bottom-up perspective. The bat signal is a bit different, at least in my German trade, as it was done by Frank Miller. Here it's a bit more sloppy, more turned to the right side. Just a detail. But I spent a lot of time comparing it with this book here, and where are the changes. Here it's this Batman flying over Gotham, or falling to Gotham under a helicopter. His chest ripped open, and you can see his armor plates. Very amazing, and all this shadow play that he is going on. And you can see the earlier drawings from Frank Miller shining through underneath. So that's the cover of Dark Knight Triumphant. And here they did this amazing stuff with translucent paper. Overlays. On the overlay you have the pencil drawing from Frank Miller, from a very gritty Batman. I mean, he's 55-year-old man, not so charming anymore. And that's the Klaus Jensen version, the inked cover. Every fourth page or so, a quarter of the pages couldn't be found, and they reprinted them in this light oversized format just to complete the story. But 75% of the original art was found, and among them many of these big one panel per page, giant pictures. Really amazing, and you almost think you can feel the whiteout at these parts, where in this case there are more special effects. This is one of my favorite double pages in this book here. I mean, you have a real impact of this Bat tank, and explosions are always more impressive in this big black and white font. And I love the punkish drawing style, the very underground, the comic style, as nobody or hardly anybody else in depicting Batman. Frank Miller and Klaus Jensen as well are so bold in their abstractions and simplifications. That's so undergroundy you can't almost see Batman, how he is covered up in dirt, and it's a very loose doodling style Frank Miller used here. And there you see him, triumphant. So, on to the third part, Hunt the Dark Knight, and you have here the overlay, and that's the tiny drawing of this new Robin, Carrie Kelly character that helps Bruce Wayne. And here's one of the stuff where you can here see the inking of Klaus Jensen. And wait a minute. Yeah, that's Klaus Jensen inking, and here you have the parts that Frank Miller wasn't satisfied with, I think, and he re-inked them, and then they mounted it onto the final page. And some of the final pages that's shown here contain the Frank Miller re-inking and the Klaus Jensen inking. That is the rest of the page as well. So really every detail fetishist will be satisfied with this book. There's no part in it that could be done better, I think. I'm so satisfied with this presentation and how it's made. And yeah, here Ronnie Reagan caricature, you know the story, and here it's as well. And just for 2 panels they put in this translucent overlay, just to showcase the Frank Miller corrections. And it's it's a bit different, clearly. One of the best sequences in The Dark Knight Returns is the fight, in my opinion, between Batman and the Joker. And the importance of the sequence is underlined by the way Klaus Jensen, Frank Miller re-inked a lot here of the stuff, and we have again these overlays that to compare better the version of Frank Miller and Klaus Jensen. And in the back part, they have reprinted these again. So you have the Klaus Jensen version and the Frank Miller version on the opposite page. So that makes it even better, and you can drink your cup of tea and be impressed about all the tiny details, like the thumb of Batman is here drawn a bit like when Frank Miller re-inked it. So, okay, let's go for the bonus section. The fourth part, The Dark Knight Falls, is maybe the weakest one. Maybe that's just me, because the central part of it is this fight between Batman and Superman, and I always thought that this battle between the two is here quite forced. I didn't knew back in the day when I've first read it why Batman and Superman actually fight each other and to the death actually, and I still really don't get it. I'm a bit, but it's not. I'm not convinced that it should be this way. Oh, here it's another comparison of Klaus Jensen inking and Frank Miller's version. And of all the corrections Frank Miller has done here, this is the stuff where this is the time where I really can see the improvement of Frank Miller's inking. If you see Klaus Jensen, and I hope you can get an impression here, this withered Superman is quite impressive. So, here, and some re-inkings of Frank Miller of the withered Superman. He has taken some kryptonite, and that's the overlay with the whole page. Yeah. So here we have again an overlay with re-inkings and the whole page. So now on to the bonus section. I have quite a lot of stuff here. Even a Sergio Aragones Frank Miller cooperation. Yeah. So maybe it's a fast way to burn your money, but I think, hey, all the Frank Miller art collected plus some bonus art collected in one giant book. Really, I can't help it. That's not a question of money anymore, that's a question where to get it. And eating bread and drinking water for a month and ignoring the cries of your starving children and your a bit annoyed looking wife, maybe. Oh, the pain to be a comic addict. What should I do? I try my best to show you some details with a hand cam. Wait a sec. So here we have the leader of the mob in all his underground punkish glory and all the line work of Frank Miller, respectively Klaus Jensen. That is so wild and punkish. And to underline the undergroundish, punkish attitude of the art here, maybe the wildest part of it is this confrontation between Batman and the Joker. That's just wild and bold. And this time for once, I don't even care if Batman looks a bit like Mussolini on a horse, foreshadowing the future right-winged, outer right-winged shit that Frank Miller has done in the meantime. It's just amazing. Completed with the bold inking of Jensen. It's not out of the world stuff here. So maybe just some random details to finish up this book here, to finish up this video. Again. Okay, I could go on for hours, I think, but then maybe nobody will watch this video to the end. So let's say goodbye. Thanks for listening and watching. Your comic book addict, Earl Grey. Goodbye.